voice of growth, mastering the mind and market.
Everyone can do something. And my gosh, I've had a blessed life. We are stronger together. Always exceed expectations. I can teach you how you will never fail. You run the race, but in the end, it's only against yourself. I've won in the race of life, man. I'm going to make a difference.
Mr. Tucson.
Ooh.
I have been back to Tucson. I came back in 2009 timeframe. And since that point in time, I've sort of watched the arc of you going from, I think you were about retiring about that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been retired 10 years now.
I've seen the arc of that to all of your philanthropic endeavors. You're a community engagement person. You're a connector. I was going to read your awards, but the whole podcast would be consumed with your list of awards. And I really want to get to know the person. Mm-hmm. Obviously, our team did research, and I've known you for some amount of time. Grew up in a small town.
Right.
Tell me about why Tucson, why our community is so important to you.
Well, a big part of it was the way I was raised. Third of 7 children, very blessed in that my parents were very, very loving people, and were always there for the community. Now, my parents passed away about 34 years ago, both parents. And Tucson wound up being the place that I met the love of my life 50 years ago at the University of Arizona. That's why I love the university. And met her, small town kids, big city, Tucson. And we fell in love with it. And that just has become our home. And then it was that evolution of, yes, the day-to-day living, getting through working, successful at that, and then eventually retiring 10 years ago. And then making a commitment, actually about 15 years ago, to really try and become a voice for the nonprofits.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I know you're at all these events, and I think you're a staple. Every time I go to one of these events, I'm like, okay, where's Dominic? Yeah. And more likely than not, I'm going to get a picture by you.
Right. It's part of the brand. You know, people are saying, gosh, if Dominic didn't take your picture, were you there? Or did the event even happen? My gosh, that's praise, high praise indeed, you know, when they say, you've got to come to our event. And sometimes they invite me to 2 or 3 galas in one night, and I can only go to one. And you got to make a choice. Yeah, absolutely.
So when you look at how far the city of Tucson has gone, and I'm going to kind of focus a lot on Tucson because that for you and for me in part is such a central part of our life. I mean, I came back to Tucson. I was born here. Went toured around the country, came back in 2009 timeframe, and I love the community. I think there's so much to offer here in Tucson. Who have you seen? Give me a few folks that you believe have moved the needle substantially in Tucson.
Well, funny, getting back to that 15-year time period, probably one of the first was Humberto Lopez, who's become a very, very close friend of mine. Didn't know him from Adam, but my background was I was a presenter. I was a kind of a marketing guru type of individual. I heard about this individual, wanted to meet him in order to honor him. And it was rather a reverse interview. He didn't know if he wanted to be honored and everything like that. Got to know him, and my presentation went very well from that one meeting. You know, he says, "You've got the deal, and you're hired." He was, in essence, hiring me. And he kind of got me into the bug of an appreciation. The particular award that he was going to get in, it was a scholarship dinner, would normally raise $25,000, $30,000. And when in that one meeting, he said, "You've got it." He picked up the phone, made 8 phone calls, and had $200,000. We raised $325,000.
Wow.
And in that evening, and it was eye-opening for me, the impact of an individual. And he has become a good friend. And there's always been that evolution, but there are individuals like that. And then Neelam and Gulshan Sethi. These two individuals are just icons in the community who over and over, I mean, you Google, you'll get 10 pages of information on that. So you have Humberto Lopez, multimillionaire, probably a billionaire by now, Neelam and Gulshan Sethi, cardiologist. I've been to events where people say, you know Gulshan, he saved my life. He saved my friend's life. He's done over 15,000 surgeries here in Tucson, and is really world renowned. But you see the heart of these individuals, and that can't, you can't not have that leave an impression on you, saying, gosh, I can make a difference. And in the corporate world, I was that marketing person, so I shifted and evolved. I said, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep sharing and marketing these stories of these nonprofits of Tucson and share those stories. And as we have, I found individuals who have a real passion, matching the passions to the particular groups that I'm involved with. And then they'll say, gosh, that's wonderful. I'm going to support them. I'll give them money. And that's how that evolution really took place. But they're, as I say, real heroes out there. And some of them are from the corporate perspective, because they have, I always remember Bill Holmes. Bill Holmes was just a mighty man, and he's about my size. And somebody gave me a compliment. They said, "You're a Hispanic Bill Holmes." I said, "What a compliment! I will definitely take that." Because he was kind of energetic as well. And of course, then Bill passed away.
He did. Yeah.
It shows how things can happen.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And the Humberto and Bill and all these people that are in the lives of so many. What really gets me, and part of the reason why this podcast is such a passion for me, is that it helps to enable action. There's a lot of people out there on the sidelines in life, and there's no judgment about that for me, right? There can be on the sidelines. You can live your entire life on the sideline. That's totally fine. But what I like to do is, if you know me, I like to push a little bit. I like to stir the pot. I like to get people to understand that fear is a word, and it really holds us back more than anything else. If you had a young 25-year-old entrepreneur call you one day and say, "Listen, I have this project I'm working on, but I don't know if I should do it," what would you tell that person?
I actually have that happen quite often. It's really, really interesting. And in some cases, some of these individuals have become what they call my Tucson son or a Tucson daughter. My 3 children are off and away and successful. But yeah, I mean, got a call from a university student. I'm working on raising $5,000 for food. Can you imagine food at the university level that students, there are issues as far as food there, and wanted to raise $5,000. It's important. And if you look at my Facebook, there's something I agree with you completely. I say everyone can do something. Everyone can do something. You might be reading a book to 3rd graders, or as in this particular case, you say, what would you advise them? Of course, hopefully this concept they're working on speaks to their heart, because they've got to work from passion. They've got to have a feeling for it, a love for it. This individual young man said, gosh, it's not right that students are going a little bit hungry here at the university, and they have a food bank and everything like that. But, he took it to heart, and he said, I'm going to make a difference. I remember meeting at Casa Maria, which is 4:30 in the morning. They start making the soup and everything else like that. And I went there during spring break, and there were a group of 6, 7 students. They were all from the Honors College. Instead of going on spring break, they were there serving up these from this giant cauldron soup for. These people are absolutely just on the street, living on the street. So, my advice to them is clearly, glad that you've embraced something. Kudos to you that you, rather than going off on spring break, are saying to yourself, I want to make a difference.
Yeah.
So, I certainly will encourage. And I'm very fortunate to be able to connect people with them. I might say, oh, well, let me introduce you to this person.
Sure.
Because again, I have probably ties to 50, 60, 70 different nonprofits. When somebody says they might need some help, I had an individual call me saying he doesn't have money for his dentures. He had a maid, couldn't get the money. I called up Impact and they said, we have an emergency fund. And then El Rio said, we need to have an adult emergency fund for dental care. And they started that, but the other group paid for that. So I get these calls on a large scale, help out with the Heart Ball or the El Rio Gala. But on a small scale, people reach out to me quite a bit for little things, and I feel privileged that they think enough to call me. My wife says, who do they think you are? But usually I'm able to connect somebody. And sometimes I'll chuckle when the individual said, I'm trying to raise $5,000. I'm thinking, gosh, I can call one person and do that. But it's better that we do it, let this person learn from this. So
I usually wait until the end of the podcast to ask this question.
Okay.
But I'm just going to do it now because it's appropriate. I am going to take a magic phone right now, and I'm going to call a number. On the other side of that number is Dominic Ortega in Globe at 17 years old. Graduated high school, about to graduate, whatever.
Yeah, graduated at 17.
What would you tell yourself?
I would say, keep doing what you're doing. I almost feel a little guilty. I would say I've almost had a magical life. You're the hero of your story. I'm the hero of my story, right? We're the good guys. And how will the story evolve? And my gosh, I've had a blessed life. When I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, going off into college and career-wise, it's almost I want to say, somewhat magical or storybook. And I say, is this fair? I've met this beautiful girl, love of my life 50 years ago. To be able to have a partner, that's very important. To have had 3 healthy, wonderful children, great parents, great brothers and sisters, and then meeting people, being inspired by people. Like here you are doing this, and there's growth for you, growth for others.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just been, there's an old movie, it's called It's a Wonderful Life.
Indeed.
Man, I'm living a wonderful life.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It really
Well,
is.
in that same vein, I'm going to take the phone back. I'm going to dial a different number.
Okay.
And it's going to be Dominic Ortega at 94 years old.
Were you, well, hopefully I would know the answer because it was me, being fulfilled. And even right now, certainly there are more days that I've gone through than there are ahead for me. But fulfillment and happiness, if I was still fulfilled and happy, because I feel that today. I tell a line, if you hear about me getting hit by a truck tomorrow, don't cry for me, Argentina. You know what that line is? Evita says, don't cry for, because the life, having lived this blessed life, I hope it continues. Really, it's my health probably that I'm looking forward to. But having that fulfilled life and being able to look in the mirror, Manny, I'll tell you, it's so important to say, were you a person of integrity? Were you honest and faithful to your wife? Were you a good friend to people? Those are important aspects to me. And knock on wood, I can say, I've tried to hold to certain values. Not that I'm better than anybody, and I never measure myself against anyone else, because it's easy to become jealous. It's easy to become envious of other individuals. There's a line, you run the race, but in the end, it's only against yourself. And I've won in the race of life, man. It's pretty darn amazing and exciting to be in that position. And yeah, if I live to be that long, it'll be pretty cool. And to give myself a wink and say, hey, we did it. We continued on being a person of integrity, being somebody that maybe was a good and positive role model for other individuals. I think I do strive to do that and let people see you can do this. You can help this person. You can be there. But you're right. No judgment to people that choose not to.
Right.
It's a perspective, though, for me, that spells happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah, I think I really am a glass half full kind of guy. And I haven't always been that way as a kid. So my father died when I was 1. And so I had this period from, we'll say 1 to 15 or 16, where it was a lot of woe is me, where I would walk into a family event and everybody would say, oh, he looks just like his dad. And so I always had this sort of like, I was fighting that. I was fighting that I was just like him. I was fighting that I was the one that had lost his father and poor this, poor that. But in like early high school, I made a decision. I'm like, this does not serve me. This is not, I'm not getting anything from being the victim.
Right.
And I mean, we're all human beings. We struggle with this with one thing or another. We all carry some sort of a cross, you know? And for me, that was one of mine. And I kind of dealt with it. And very rarely does it come back. I mean, I haven't had that mentality in a long time, but I do see it sometimes in others. And that's when I try to sort of reach across the aisle and say, you know what? I'm here for you. I hear you, and I'd be happy to just listen. And a lot of people don't have that. Besides your lovely wife, who I've met, who would you say is your biggest mentor?
Gosh, that's interesting because I have had so many individuals who've been really, really positive aspects of my life. I think, I really respect Gulshan Sethi so much because he's such a humble man. He's a humble man, yet he's a Renaissance man. He's my height. He's not a huge guy, but he's somebody that I would definitely want to hopefully have lived my life in the way that he has. But initially, of course, my father was the greatest man I'd ever known. And he was a philosopher. He was, I remember coming home from college and I said to him, Dad, you could have been a multimillionaire. You could have been a corporate giant. And he was running and owning a little jewelry store in Globe, Arizona. And he was happy with his life and he was fulfilled. Great dad, great husband. And, shame on me that here I look down on him in essence for that. And yet he was the greatest philosopher, one of the kindest men. Priests would come to him for advice.
Wow.
I kid you not. I mean, he was truly amazing. But again, in the evolution of time, there's the high school, then you leave, it's the cat's in the cradle. Sorry, Dad, I can't come home. Can't come home now. The kids, the babies, this and that. And, but there is no doubt my father was the greatest man I have ever known and will ever known. So from that point till I was, in my beginning of 30s when he passed away, then of course there was just evolutions on my own. And then in this other phase, probably somebody like overall as far as being rounded and a humble individual, Gulshan Sethi. Yeah, he's a pretty impressive man, even though he doesn't try it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are amazing people. I have a few of those in my life that maybe from the outside in, they're one thing, but when you get to know them, they really show their different light.
Yeah.
And I think that those are all people that they're sometimes, I'm going to use the term unreachable for some. You will have the pleasure of having a relationship with him and with others, and others do not. And this is why this format is so important. I think the idea of a podcast and telling stories is so important. And so you are, among many things, a storyteller.
Okay.
You tell great stories. And you use your photography to tell stories. Mm-hmm. in a manner of speaking, because you work with so many organizations and because you are a connector, you have a very unique position in life, right? Mm-hmm. What do you see as your next chapter? Or will you just continue? I shouldn't say just continue. Or will you continue doing what you're doing? Or do you have something else in mind?
I so enjoy this. As you know, there might be a day that I'll go to 3 events in one day: a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. And there have been a couple of days back in 2019. I went to 4. Thankfully, in La Paloma, they have 2 ballrooms. So maybe I'll go to breakfast here, go to one ballroom, then go to the other ballroom, and then have some dinner. Now, that's time. That is my most precious asset. There's only so much of it that I have. And people say, how can you do that? And I'll tell you, it's a labor of love. I learned this story, and then Youth on Their Own, and what they do, and Single Mom Scholars, and YWCA, how they're empowering women and against racism. And I get fired up. It's part of that fuel. And it is true, the more that you give, the more you receive. And I really feel that in my heart, because and sometimes I'm like, gosh, I'm going to drive there. It's going to be get ready and an hour round trip and 4 hours there, and then come home, and the next day everybody's sleeping in. And I'm working for 5 hours on these pictures and processing them, putting them out there. But then somebody will say, oh my God, that's such Casa Maria does such amazing work. Sister José, I did a post for them on a Friday, and on a Saturday, a friend called me up. He said, that looks wonderful. I'm going to give him $10,000. And I'm like, whoa, see, that's a nice victory. But really, there's a moral victory for me inside, to feel good. And we'll see. As long as I can continue on with this, I'll probably continue to do so, because they need an ambassador, and I hope to be a good ambassador for them, telling their story.
You're definitely the ambassador for so many. Of the dozens of awards you've won, there's one in particular that I'm gonna kind of ask you about, because it's a peculiar award. I think you know which one I'm going to ask about. 2020 Women Who Soar.
Yeah.
So that is an award usually given to women.
It's only given to women.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. I was notified by the university saying, you are a recipient of the Women Who Soar. And I thought, is this a mistake, Dominique? Do you think Dominic is a woman? They said, no. You and Carlotta Flores. Now I'm like, Carlotta Flores, she is legendary. I mean, I so admire her. So they said, no, you are receiving this. I said, why am I receiving this award? And they say, you advocate so much for women in the community, and you do so much for women that we want to recognize that, and you are getting this award along with Carlotta Flores. And I was, I was certainly honored, and I do think it's so important to value and appreciate the women of our community. As I say, I've had these Tucson daughters and Tucson sons that I've helped mentor in different ways, but probably an 80% ratio of women to, as my daughters to the men, because I want to be there for them as a kind of a father figure. And sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And whereas I have experience, I've been trained in different things, problem solving, critical thinking, business plans, I can mentor one. She started a business, and 3-4 years later, she's making $500,000-$600,000. She's 28, 29 years old.
That's amazing.
But in the end, each of them has to put in the hard work. She put in the work. She started during COVID. We did a business plans all over the phone and everything. She put in the hard work. First year, $100,000, $250,000, $550,000. And this girl she didn't know how great she was. And then again, she put in the work. She made herself successful. But it's really kind of cool to see stories like that. And she's won now Best of Tucson. I think maybe she's 30 years old, her and her husband.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. With all these accolades and all of the success and all these great things happening in the region, in Tucson, and the nation, and the world, really, what do you see as maybe the top 3 problems that we're facing as a society. Do you have any sense of that from your perspective?
Oh, absolutely. Because, I gave a speech for that philanthropist of the year, and, we're talking to 800 people from different nonprofits. And I said, I wish you didn't exist. I wish there wasn't a need for someone to provide housing for someone, for a need for somebody to provide food for someone, emergency funds. That is certainly a challenge that exists today. And I think more so than it has in the past, that there is more of an us and them mentality. And sadly, when you hear talk, I'm not a super religious person. I was raised Catholic, but a basic philosophy that I believe in is caring for other individuals and caring, sharing, equality, certainly for everyone. And sadly, there is such a disparity in the world and in the United States right now that it's a challenging, very, very challenging time. And yet it's important that we talk to each other and say, gosh, you're just like me. We do want the same things, but why are we so contrary to the way, the methodology that we can achieve this oneness, which is what I believe in. Another thing that I put, like I say, when going back to at the end of some of my posts, when I say we can all do something, also I'll say we are stronger together. I try and leave that little tagline out there, letting people know we are stronger together, and it's a challenge. I don't know if it's going to take aliens coming from a spaceship coming to attack us to finally, that's what brings humanity together. But sadly, that is the major challenge, and equity, resources that we have, water, the planet itself, but. These are challenges that only if we start caring for each other, I think, I will take a lot less so others can have more. And that's kind of a philosophy that I believe in. And sometimes people agree with that and sometimes they don't. They say, I've got mine and I want yours. That was an interesting conversation I had with an individual. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you really boil down to human nature and kind of who we are, if you really pause in stillness and silence and really look at the person you might disagree with, most people, if you look at least Americans, we all kind of want the same thing. Mm-hmm. And me saying that is controversial because people don't believe that.
Right.
I can ask somebody on the extreme left and the extreme right a question about, do you want to be healthy? Do you want your family to be provided for? Do you want to be cared for when you're sick? Do you want this? Do you want that? And a lot of the times, if they take the ego off the table, they're all going to agree. It's just the manner and the scope. There's going to be little differences on how. I was raised in a very left-leaning family. I came out into a more right-leaning situation, and I kind of settled more in the libertarian mindset of like, okay, I just believe that maybe it's because of my grandmother, my mother. I've seen people work their butts off and then have either the government or somebody give somebody else who's not working everything for free. I think that's where my mindset comes from. But
What's
I think
wrong with this picture?
Fundamentally, I think we all kind of want the same thing.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And you're right. You mentioned a key word, ego. Ego is, I'm not listening to what he's saying, but I want to answer. I want to beat him. I want to debate, and my answer to be more right than theirs. So often we do not listen, and it's that ego of wanting to win or overpower or beat the other individual, and I like dealing with the facts, and I say, you know what? I want to learn too. Let's look that up. You bring up a good point, and let's find out. So maybe both of us can learn.
Right.
And that helps to kind of diffuse a little bit of a situation. I've had guys hang up on me before and call me a couple of names, and these are my friends supposedly. I'm like, well, let's look it up. Agree not to disagree.
Yeah, it's a little crazy out there sometimes, and You look at where politics are going. You look at where there's so many people in need. I don't think a lot of people like war, but I don't like the fact that we're at war in general as a human race. If you look at our brains, they're a 200,000 to 500,000 year old operating system.
Yeah.
We're existing on this OS, if you will, that hasn't been upgraded.
That's a great point, man.
There are ways to get slight upgrades, right? There is some mindfulness techniques. There's you can call it prayer, you can call it meditation, you can call it psychology. There's lots of ways, right? What is a way you use to sort of ground yourself in the madness that we have in this world?
I love information, and again, for me, it's very easy. In the old days, I was in the grind, baby. I was, get up early and you got to start cranking and start producing. Well, now being retired for 10 years, I'm able to be an observer of this world, be an observer of the madness. And of course, I have tremendous amount of information at my fingertips. And I like global news because we are a global community and impacted by that. So I enjoy being mindful of taking time. I also love writing things down. And certainly anybody that I would tell, anybody who asks me when I do mentor some, actually sometimes I carry a journal and I'll gift that to them. I said, here's a journal. I want you to write down what you want to do. You'll be in 6 months. Write down what you want to be in 3 years or 5 years. This is my gift to you. Then if you want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. And imagine the tree of life. And this is your life here. And here's your financial end. Here's your emotional end. Here is, and all these different aspects. And how are you going to grow? How are you going to nurture? You hear the old saying, there are two bears inside. And which one will you feed, the good bear or the bad bear? That type of thing. So it's important, but to take that time, and that's why a lot of people utilize this, 4:30 a.m. It's quiet. I have mindfulness, meditation, things like that to improve themselves. But many people don't have that luxury. They're getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go dig a ditch, or something like that. And so we need to help those individuals.
There's a podcast I listened to the other day. I consume lots of podcasts, and I really, for me, it's been kind of a breakthrough of information. And sometimes you hear these podcast guests and they might be blowing smoke, but whatever, go back to the data, right? Figure it out. This guy, his name is Oz Perlman, spelled like Oz, O-Z. He is a mentalist. So he's kind of like a magician in that he'll speak with you and he will guess. You'll have, ask you to guess somebody's name or whatever. He'll say, think about somebody in your life, this and that, write it down. And then he will guess a name and he's almost always right. So the guy that was interviewing him, somebody I admire, Stephen Bartlett, was kind of trying to probe, like, how do you do this? And he didn't give away many secrets, but he did give away one that's tied to what you just said. He writes down everything. If he meets somebody, he goes back, he has a journal on his phone actually, and he writes down features about that person. Okay, so Dominic, this and that, I met him here. And so what he does is he builds a dossier of this person. And so when he meets them in the future, he will have tidbits. Oh yeah, you're from Globe, right? And your dad was a jeweler, right? Or whatever. And so that builds community, builds trust, and that helps to grow. Do you have anything like that, little tricks or little things that you do besides writing that you can share?
Well, I totally believe in that. In fact, one of the things if you could say, led to my success corporate-wise, there was a guy in MASH called Radar. Yeah. He always knew the boss would turn around and, I was kind of a little bit known for doing some of those things because my motto was always exceed expectations. Always exceed expectations. So when they were expecting this, I would do that and more. And you're right. Improving the memory is very, very important. Remembering the facts of individual. It's important just, utilizing a person's name, and building the rapport with the individual. That adds so much to the relationship, and it can build trust. And you're right. I was kind of known to be able to read people. Oh, this person, I must have said something because we're in this group scenario, and this person, there's a problem. Either they're unhappy with something or they're unhappy with me. Let's probe. Let's find out. And it was a kind of cool gift to have, to be able to, you got to read people. You have to see. And this person, when they were doing this to me, and I spoke about his wife, that it was, she was much younger than him or whatever, and he really got upset with me for that. So I had to, publicly, and I said, obviously I've said something that offended you. I apologize. I want to be as public as possible, and clear that up, and at least offer. Now, whether he will and accept it or not, he was an old guy and he wasn't, but anyway, it makes for an interesting life. But at least you've done your part to make amends. Again, ego, and in terms of I'm no better than you. I'm no worse than you. I had a dear friend just tell me that recently. You think you're better than everybody else, and you're not. And I'm like, dude, that's the opposite of my philosophy. There is nobody that I compare myself to, because that's bad for you internally. And you give that free rent space in your brain about somebody else. Why would you care about that when it tears you down? And you should be focusing. I'm a believer in Zig Ziglar and Hopkins and all these individuals. It's about the positive. Tony Robbins. Be that positive individual. Build others up. Don't ever tear people down. I know a couple guys in town that they just tear people down, and they think it lifts them up, and they're so wrong.
They're so wrong. It's the opposite.
Yeah, and people look down and they think they're a big deal, and they're really not. And it's a shame, because we all should rise together. You do your podcast and become a multi-zillionaire. I'm proud of you, man. Way to go. And there should be why should I help him with this or that? No, it's because, again, typically you have to put in the work to achieve what you're going to achieve.
Yeah, there's a bit of a mentor of mine back in the day, Bob Davis, a local real estate guy. He's a little bit polarizing sometimes, but he's a great guy. And he told me something early on when I moved back to Tucson. He says, make all the connections that you possibly can. Never put your hand out when you do that, because it'll all come back. And I took that to heart, and it has come back. And I tell my kids, I tell all the people I work with as well, that, life and business is a full contact sport. It's a full contact sport. We're going to get a little beat up sometimes. We're going to get hurt. We're going to hurt other people, but it's about just getting back up, dusting yourself off, and going at it again.
Well, absolutely. Goes back. I never used the F word. The F word in my book is failure. For me, there are learning experiences. And again, it's a cliche. How will you react to that, quote, failure or learning experience? That's what makes the individual's character. And so, it is important to let people know and to take the risk and take the challenge. And I tell people, what if I could tell you now a way that you would never fail? Let me tell you, I don't care how young they are, all there, they turn around. I can teach you how you will never fail in life. Do you want to know more? And I've had people, that were, and all of a sudden, well, yeah, because as you say, there's that fear. And then you have to just define what is, quote, failure, and what is truly success. So, like I say, it's fun to be in this observer of life, an observer of young people and middle-aged people in the world, and enjoy the world as it goes by, and hopefully be an active participant of making things a little better. That's one thing that I think everyone should strive for. And I think you see it as, certainly these billionaires get older and older, they're giving away, hundreds of millions of dollars, and are they trying to buy their way into heaven, or they do feel guilty of how they treated people in the past? Or is it just truly they've reached a point where they realize what is important in life to, help others. Bill Gates, what he's doing, eliminating malaria and whatnot. And help leaving the world a better place. That's a pretty good gig, a pretty good epitaph on your tombstone. That he made the world a little better place and made people feel a little better about themselves. I think that's important, making people feel better about themselves, not in a I'll get something out of it transactional way, but just because it's a good thing to do and it's a right thing way to be, I think.
That's very good. I mean, thank you so much for that, for doing that for the community, for doing that for so many young people and old people too. And, in 25 years, you'll be 94. And that was the reason for the math. And really, I hope that in 25 years when I'll be older than you, but that we can sit and have a cup of coffee and chat about and really look at this world as it's evolved. Hopefully, again, as being optimists, we see that the world is evolving in a better direction.
We hope.
A lot of diseases are being cured. A lot of people will live longer because of technology. Yeah, we have issues. Yeah, we have a lot of problems. But I always look at what part can I do to move the needle, and I appreciate that you have the same mentality.
No, absolutely. It is. We want better for everyone. I think it's the right way to think about life. It certainly brings joy in one's life, and fulfillment. So say I've had conversation. What do you want? I want to be rich. Okay, do you really? Now I'm going to give you $100 million. Now what are you going to do with it? I'm going to do this and this. Now what's important to you? Now that you've already bought a solid gold toilet, now that you've already bought your mother a house, now that you have a Lamborghini, you have 5 of them. Now what's important to you? Start individuals thinking about that. They're like, well, I want to be healthy. Ooh, do you need $1 billion to work out? And I want to be knowledgeable, to read a book and things like that. Do you need $1 billion? Do you need $1 billion to be fulfilled and happy? It was a fun conversation.
Yeah, it's a great advice.
It's like I say, it's fun to share, and it will be what it will be. Some people like me, some people don't, but it's okay,
Yeah.
And we like ourselves, and that's a pretty big deal.
It is. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dominic. I really was inspired here, and I know that this podcast will inspire lots of people to take action. And as you say, do that little extra. We can all do a little bit. And so thank you for being on the podcast.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, buddy.
Cheers.
Really. My pleasure.